What is work-life balance anyway? I think it's something that we often think we need. It's something that we maybe strive for, that we want, and yet it's often something that feels very out of reach. So in today's little video, I'm going to explore this idea with you through the lens of an article I just read. So I love these two guys. It's Robert Biswas-Diener and his colleague and co-author Christian van Nieuwerburgh. And the two of them just had an article come out called Crafting an Unbalanced Life. And they're really kind of looking at the assumptions that we make about this idea of a balanced life. And as though that any of us can have sort of 50% of me is a worker and 50% of me is just taking it easy, hanging out with my friends, living the good life, basically. And so I think this is such an interesting question because I think we all sort of strive for this idea of a balanced life. I used to see it in couples counseling all the time. We wanted relationships where it was 50-50. I don't think those relationships really exist. And I don't think that a balanced work life exists either. Frankly, I think that we're constantly in a state of maybe some days it's 60-40. I'm going to be taking a couple of days off. That'll be probably more like 90-10, more for my life than for my work. And then other times it's more 10 life, 90 work. And that balance is constantly moving and changing and flexing and flowing as whatever the need is emerges. But I think if we have this idea of I'm doing it wrong, if I don't have this work-life balance, it starts to kind of mess with our minds. It makes us less happy, less enjoying of the time that we do have off. Well, I've not done a very good job this week. I've only had 20% my time and 80% has been work time. And so therefore I'm failing. But this messaging is a problem because maybe given the situation that you find yourself in at work right now, the 80-20 imbalance may be quite appropriate. And I saw this in relationships, as I said, a lot also, where people would say, I want to have a relationship that's 50-50. I think this is the biggest wrong way of thinking about relationships. And I say this as somebody who's been married for going on 28 years now. And I think there are days where my husband is 80 and I'm 20. And then there's other days that I'm 80 and he's 20. And then there's the modulation of all the different values in between. I broke my leg at one point and I would say he was 100 and I was like 0 because I couldn't even get out of bed for like about, I don't know, 6 weeks. So I think this idea of 50-50 ends up sort of shagging with our thinking. And so I think we have to maybe start to explore these ideas. And some of the things that Robert and Christian bring up, I think are really interesting questions. What are our assumptions about a need for work-life balance? What is superior about a balanced life versus an unbalanced one? I think it's such an interesting question because I think when we hear unbalanced, we think that's got to be bad. And those biases about these kind of binary good, bad, right, wrong, black, white get activated. And we think, oh, well, if it's unbalanced, it's wrong. And we need to start to check our own thinking. And is balance in life even possible? I honestly don't think that it is, just given the nature of something as simple as walking. It's something that we do all the time. You walk probably everywhere you go, or at least 99% of you are walking around on 2 legs in some form or other. And walking is the product of continually taking steps and falling into the next movement. So walking is just controlled falling. And I don't think we think about it like that. So I don't even think in walking we are fully balanced. I think we work on balance in our body. I think yoga is a great example of working on balance. I think we can work with our breathing and try and be much more mindful of our breathing so that our body feels balanced. But if it's really truly balanced, I don't know. And I'm not sure that's the thing that we need to be striving for, especially when it comes to how we're functioning in our lives. There are times when I probably play too many puzzles, or there are times when I get very focused on doing art, and I can spend a lot of very focused attention on what I'm painting or the photography that I'm creating, and the rest of my life gets a little out of balance. Yet, that stuff totally feeds my soul. And so, if I'm doing things that are feeding my soul, I think that ends up being the thing that allows me to be out of balance in other places in my life for periods of time. So if I'm working a lot, I love what I do, so it doesn't end up feeling like such a hardship. But if I didn't love what I did, I would definitely want to be creating a counterbalance to all in on a job I don't love. Yet, at what cost is my thinking that it should be in balance? And I don't know that it should be. I think that, again, there are different times in our lives where we have to be able to navigate the flow of what is required of us in that moment. There was a book that I read that I really just loved called, honestly, I don't even remember the name of the book, but there was a line in it that was really important to me when I read it, and it continues to sort of guide my life in some ways, which is the difference between a hero and a victim is the mood they're in when circumstances take a turn for the worst and require action. And I think that that is that sense of we need to meet our moments as the moment needs to be met, and that it doesn't always mean that we're in a full life work balance or a full relational balance, but that we are able to navigate the ebb and flow of what is required of us in any given moment. And I totally will leave a link to this article. It's a very short article, but I think it's a really interesting question about how our assumptions color the way that we think about not just the story we're telling ourselves about what should be, but also ourselves, and what sort of negative narrative are we saying to ourselves as a result of that belief that it should be something. So I hope this video was useful to you. I'm totally fascinated with this topic. I'd love to hear your comments below on how you achieve your own work-life unbalanced life or unbalanced relationships, but they really work for you. And any other ideas you have, please like, subscribe, do all the things, and I'll see you in another video. Cheers.